I haven't felt real in 3 years. Not since the night I stood in the rain outside the Four Seasons ballroom, watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as 200 people celebrated my life's work, while the man who destroyed it smiled and accepted my award. That's when I learned what betrayal actually does to you. It doesn't just break your heart. It rewrites your entire existence, makes you question every memory, every laugh, every moment you thought was real. It turns you into something hollow that walks around wearing your face, performing the motions of being alive while everything inside has gone dark and cold. My name is Nathan Cross, and I used to be someone who believed in goodness. I believed in loyalty, in the sacred bond between brothers who chose each other. I believed that if you gave someone everything, your trust, your secrets, your dreams, your whole fucking soul, they would honor that gift. I was wrong. And this is the story of how I learned that lesson, how I died inside, and how I came back as something different, something patient, something dangerous. This is the story of how I destroyed the man I loved most in this world. Theo Brennan walked into my life on a Tuesday in September 2015. And for 8 years after that, he was my life. I was 26, working 90-hour weeks as a junior data architect at Meridian Analytics in Seattle, living in a studio apartment that smelled like old coffee and ambition, surviving on ramen, and the desperate hope that someday my work would matter. I was brilliant at what I did, pattern recognition in massive data sets, building predictive models that could see things others missed. But I was invisible. Just another tech drone grinding away in a city full of geniuses. The company had just hired Theo as a senior project manager, brought in from a failing startup in San Francisco to help restructure our client relations division. He was 28, ridiculously charismatic, with this easy confidence that made everyone want to be near him. Dark hair, always slightly messy, green eyes that actually listened when you talked, a smile that felt like sunshine after months of Seattle rain. Our first meeting was in a conference room that smelled like dry erase markers and broken dreams. I'd been asked to present my analysis on client churn patterns, and I was nervous as hell, sweating through my shirt, stammering through my slides, watching the executives' eyes glaze over as I drowned them in statistical jargon. Halfway through, Theo interrupted. "Can I ask you something, Nathan?" His voice was gentle but stopped me cold. "Sure." My throat was dry. "Why do you think clients actually leave?" I blinked at him. The data shows that... No. He leaned forward, and suddenly I had his complete attention. "Forget the data for a second. Why do you think they leave? You've been studying this for months. What does your gut tell you?" It was the first time anyone at that company had asked what I thought, instead of just what the numbers said. "They feel forgotten," I heard myself say. "The data shows they stop engaging 6 weeks before they cancel, but I think they stop engaging because they already felt invisible. Like we only called when we wanted something from them, not because we actually cared." Theo smiled, and it wasn't the polite corporate smile I was used to. It was real. "That's exactly right. That's the insight we needed. Not just what's happening, but why." He turned to the executives. "This is the guy we should be building our entire retention strategy around." After the meeting, he found me at my desk. "That was good work in there," he said. "Really good. I'm sorry if I put you on the spot." "No, it's..." "Thank you. No one's ever asked me that kind of question before." "Well, they should." He grabbed a chair and sat down next to me, completely ignoring the fact that he was a senior manager and I was nobody. Look, I just got to Seattle. Don't know anyone, and I'm already sick of eating alone. You want to grab dinner? I want to hear more about your work. That dinner lasted 4 hours. We closed down a Thai restaurant in Capitol Hill, talking about everything. Data architecture and philosophy, our childhoods and our fears, what we wanted our lives to mean. Theo had grown up in Boston, the middle child in a family of high-achieving lawyers, always feeling like he had to be twice as good to get half the recognition. He'd spent his 20s chasing success, building someone else's dream at that startup, only to watch it collapse because the founders couldn't stop fighting. I'm tired of politics, he told me over his third beer. I'm tired of brilliant people getting ignored because they don't know how to play the game. I want to build something real, where the best ideas win, not the best bullshitters. That's why I got into data, I said. Numbers don't lie, they don't have egos or agendas, they just are. He laughed at that. Yeah, but someone has to interpret the numbers. That's where people like me need people like you. You see the truth in the data, I just help translate it so everyone else can understand. We were perfect complements, yin and yang, the architect and the builder. That first dinner became a weekly tradition, then twice a week, then almost every night. Within 3 months, Theo and I were inseparable. We started collaborating on projects, and together we were unstoppable, my technical genius combined with his people skills and strategic vision. We landed 3 major clients in our first quarter, working together, brought in revenue that made the executives actually notice us. But more than the work, there was the friendship. God, the friendship. Theo became my brother in every way that mattered. We were at each other's apartments constantly, went hiking every Sunday in the Cascades, took weekend trips to Portland and Vancouver. We talked about everything. Our fears about becoming our fathers, our terror that we'd work ourselves to death without ever really living, our secret dreams we'd never told anyone else. I told him about my dad dying when I was 19, how I'd never dealt with that grief, just buried it under work and achievement. How I sometimes woke up at 3 a.m. convinced I was wasting my life, that I'd die without ever mattering to anyone. He told me about his ex-fiancée who'd left him 2 years earlier because he loved his career more than her. How he sometimes wondered if she was right, if he was capable of actually loving anything except success. You're capable, I told him one night when we were drunk on his couch, watching the city lights blur through rain-streaked windows. You're one of the most genuine people I've ever met. She just wasn't your person. Maybe I don't have a person, he said quietly. Maybe some people are just meant to work and die alone. Then we'll die alone together, I said, and we both laughed, but I meant it. Seriously, man, you're my family now, you know that, right? He looked at me then with something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. Gratitude, maybe, or relief, or something deeper. Yeah, I know you're mine too. Those were the golden years. 2015 to 2018, the years when I believed in magic because I'd found someone who actually saw me, valued me, chose me. Every success was sweeter because I got to share it with Theo. Every failure was bearable because he was there, telling me we'd figure it out together. We got promoted together in 2017, me to senior data architect, him to Director of Client Strategy. By 2018, we were the wunderkind team everyone wanted to work with. The executives started talking about us like we were the future of the company. Cross and Brennan, they'd say. Those two are going places. They had no idea how right they were, just not in the way anyone expected. The first crack appeared so small I almost missed it. It was March 2019. Theo and I had been working for 6 months on what we called Project Oracle, a revolutionary predictive analytics platform that could forecast client needs before they even knew they had them. It was my baby, the culmination of 4 years of research and development, the thing I'd been building toward my entire career. But it was Theo who'd figured out how to sell it. He'd spent months courting potential investors, setting up meetings with venture capitalists, laying the groundwork for us to potentially spin it off into our own startup. "This is it, Nate," he'd said over drinks one night, his eyes bright with possibility. "This is our ticket. We build this right. And we're not just employees anymore. We're founders. We're legacy. Our ticket, our startup, our legacy." I should have paid more attention to how often he said "we," but somehow always positioned himself as the face of it all. The crack happened at a meeting with Sarah Chen, a senior VP I barely knew. Theo had scheduled it as a casual update on Oracle's progress, but when I walked into the conference room, the energy felt off. Sarah was there with 2 other executives I'd never worked with, and they all had that look, the predatory interest of people who smell money. "Nathan, glad you could join us," Theo said, but his smile was different, more professional, more careful. "I've been briefing Sarah and the team on Oracle's capabilities." For the next hour, I watched Theo present my work, the algorithms I'd designed, the testing protocols I'd developed, the unique architecture that made Oracle actually revolutionary, with barely any mention of my name. He didn't claim credit directly, just somehow managed to make it sound like the team had done everything, while positioning himself as the visionary who'd seen the potential. "This is impressive, Theo," Sarah said when he finished. "Really impressive. I can see why you're so excited about this." Theo's excitement is based on the 4 years I've spent building the underlying technology, I said, trying to keep my voice light, but needing them to understand. "The predictive modeling alone took me 18 months to perfect." "Of course," Theo jumped in smoothly. "Nathan's technical execution has been crucial. I couldn't have developed this strategy without his engineering expertise." Develop this strategy, his engineering expertise. Like I was a contractor he'd hired instead of the creator of the entire fucking system. After the meeting, I followed Theo back to his office. "What the hell was that?" I tried to keep my voice calm. "What was what?" He looked genuinely confused. "You just presented my entire project like you built it. You barely mentioned my name." "Nathan, come on. I mentioned you several times. I specifically talked about your technical contributions." "My technical contributions?" "Theo, I built this, the whole thing. You've been helping with the business strategy, which I appreciate. But Oracle is my system, my design, my work." Something flickered across his face. Irritation, maybe, or defensiveness. "And who do you think has been making it possible for you to do that work? Who got you the resources, the budget, the protection from executives who wanted to cut your project 6 different times? Who's been setting up the meetings, building the relationships, creating the environment where your ideas can actually matter? I know you've done a lot. No, I don't think you do know." His voice had an edge now. "You get to sit in your office and do the fun part, the creation, the problem solving, the genius work. But someone has to do the political shit, Nathan. Someone has to play the game, manage up, protect what we're building. That's not glamorous, but it's just as important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying that in that meeting, you made it sound like Oracle was your project that I helped with instead of my project that you helped position. Oh my God, he rubbed his face. This is exactly why engineers don't run companies. You want credit for every line of code, every algorithm, every technical decision. But in the real world, Nathan, the idea is maybe 20% of the value, the execution, the strategy, the ability to actually bring something to market. That's the other 80%. So my 4 years of work is 20%. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? We stared at each other, and for the first time in 4 years, I saw a stranger looking back at me. I'm saying we're supposed to be partners, Theo said finally, his voice softer. And partners don't keep score. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. You're right, I said. I'm sorry. I'm protective of this work. I know you are, and I love that about you. He smiled, and it was the old Theo smile, warm and genuine. Look, I'll be more careful about how I present things. I never want you to feel like I'm not acknowledging your contributions. We're a team, okay? Always have been, always will be. I left his office feeling like maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe he was right that I didn't understand the political side of things. But the crack was there now, even if I couldn't see it yet. Over the next 6 months, I noticed more cracks. Small things, tiny shifts in how Theo operated. He started taking calls about Oracle without me. Just preliminary stuff, he'd say. No point in both of us wasting time on exploratory conversations. He made changes to our investor pitch deck without showing me. Just wordsmithing, he'd explain, making it more accessible to non-technical audiences. He scheduled meetings with executives I'd never met, then briefed me afterward instead of including me. You're too busy with development to sit through boring strategy sessions, he'd insist. I'm protecting your time. Every explanation made sense in isolation, but together they formed a pattern I didn't want to see. The worst part was that our friendship seemed fine. We still did our Sunday hikes, still grabbed dinner twice a week, still talked about everything. If anything, Theo seemed more attentive than before, asking about my life, my stress levels, making sure I was taking care of myself. You're working too hard, Nate, he'd say. You need to step back sometimes, let other people handle things. That's what delegation is for. I thought he was being a good friend, looking out for me, preventing burnout. I didn't realize he was isolating me from my own creation. By October 2019, Theo had taken over almost all external communication about Oracle. He was the face of the project, the name people knew, the person executives called when they wanted updates. I was still building the technology, still doing the crucial work, but I'd become invisible again, just like before Theo arrived, but I still didn't see it. I still trusted him completely, and then November happened. I found out on a Tuesday. Funny how the worst days always seem to be Tuesdays. I'd been working late as usual, debugging a particularly tricky algorithm in Oracle's neural network layer. It was after midnight when I finally solved it, and I was exhausted and exhilarated in that way you only get when you crack something that's been eating at you for weeks. I wanted to tell Theo, even though it was late, even though he'd probably be asleep, I wanted to share this win with him. That's what we did. Celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small. I pulled out my phone to text him. but I'd left my laptop charger at his apartment the weekend before. His place was only 10 minutes away, and I knew where he kept his spare key. We'd been doing this for years, dropping by each other's places, letting ourselves in, completely comfortable in each other's space. I let myself into his apartment at 12:47 a.m. It was dark, quiet. Tayo's bedroom door was closed, probably asleep. I grabbed my charger from where I'd left it by his couch, and I would have left right then, would have gone home and texted him in the morning, would have never known. But his laptop was sitting open on his coffee table, and the screen was still lit, showing an email inbox. I wasn't trying to snoop. I was literally just glancing at it as I walked past. But my name caught my eye in a subject line, and before I could think about whether I should or shouldn't, I was reading. The email was from Sarah Chen, sent 3 hours earlier. Subject, Oracle Transition Plan. Theo, thanks for the updated timeline. I think you're handling Nathan's transition perfectly. Gradually moving him to a purely technical advisory role while you take operational control is exactly the right approach. Keeps his expertise available without the leadership complications you mentioned. I agree that he's too emotionally invested in the project to see the bigger picture. Engineers often can't make the leap to true business thinking, and trying to force it usually creates conflict. Better to let him keep building while you handle everything else. The board is very excited about your vision for Oracle as a standalone entity. Your Series A projections are compelling, and having you as sole founder will make the cap table much cleaner. Keep me posted on your conversations with the VCs. If you need me to help manage Nathan's expectations about equity structure, I'm happy to step in. Looking forward to seeing you lead this. You've earned it. Sarah, I read it 3 times, then I read it again. My hands were shaking, my vision was tunneling, the words kept rearranging themselves, trying to mean something different than what they so clearly said. Transition plan, moving him to advisory role. Too emotionally invested, sole founder, manage Nathan's expectations. With numb fingers, I scrolled through Theo's email history. Every instinct screamed that I should stop, that I was violating his privacy, that there had to be an explanation. But I kept scrolling, and I found dozens of emails. Emails to Sarah about how to handle Nathan's emotional attachment to the project. Emails to VCs describing Oracle as my platform with engineering support from my team. Emails to lawyers about founder equity structure with no mention of my name. Emails to investors where he presented himself as the sole creator, the visionary, the architect of something I had built with my own hands over 4 years. One email sent to a venture capital firm 2 weeks earlier stopped my heart. I spent 3 years developing Oracle's core architecture, building the predictive models from the ground up, and refining the algorithms to achieve 94% accuracy. My senior engineer, Nathan Cross, has been invaluable in executing the technical implementation. And I plan to bring him on as CTO once we've secured Series A funding, assuming he's willing to accept a 5% equity stake appropriate to his contributions. 3 years developing, my senior engineer, 5% equity stake for my system, my architecture, my 4 years of work. I was going to be sick. I scrolled back further into archived folders and found something worse. A series of emails from March, right around the time of that first crack, where Theo and Sarah had discussed the Nathan problem. He's brilliant technically, Theo had written, but completely naive about business. Still thinks we're going to build this together like some kind of equal partnership. I've been trying to gently shift his expectations without bruising his ego, but he gets territorial when he feels like his baby is being taken away. It's exhausting. Sarah's response. Creative types are always like this. They think because they built something, they own it, you're doing the right thing. By managing him carefully, keep him focused on the technical work and gradually take over everything else. By the time he realizes what's happening, the deal will be done and he won't have much choice but to accept whatever role you offer him. Theo's reply. Exactly, and honestly, it's for his own good. Nathan would be a terrible founder. He's too emotional, too attached, too focused on perfection instead of profit. But he doesn't see that about himself. He still thinks he can be Steve Jobs when he's really just a brilliant Wozniak. Someone has to protect him from his own limitations. I sat down on his couch because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. 4 years of friendship, 4 years of brotherhood, 4 years of sharing everything, trusting completely, believing we were building something together. And the entire time he'd been managing me, manipulating me, positioning himself to steal my life's work while convincing me he was protecting me. Every late night, conversation about our dreams, every hike where we talked about building something meaningful, every moment I'd felt grateful to have found someone who actually saw me. It had all been a lie. Number, not a lie. That's too simple. It had been a long con. I sat there in his dark apartment for 2 hours, reading through years of emails. Each one added another piece to the picture, and the picture was devastating. Theo had been planning this from the beginning. From that very first dinner in 2015, he'd seen my potential and decided to harness it for himself. Every friendship moment, every bonding experience, every time he'd made me feel valued and seen, it was all strategy, all positioning, all grooming. He'd studied me, learned my vulnerabilities, figured out exactly what I needed to hear to trust him completely. And I'd given him everything, my work, my trust, my whole fucking heart. Around 3 a.m., I heard Theo's bedroom door open. He shuffled out in his boxer shorts, heading toward the bathroom, and froze when he saw me sitting in his living room. Nathan, Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing here? His voice was thick with sleep, but his eyes were already sharpening, calculating, realizing that something was wrong. I just looked at him. This man I'd loved like a brother, this person I'd have died for. Your laptop was open, I said quietly. I saw the email from Sarah. He went very still. And then I read the others. I continued. All of them. Every fucking email about your Nathan problem and how to manage my expectations and how I'm too emotional to be a real founder. Nathan, is any of it real? My voice cracked. Any of it? The friendship, the brotherhood, all those conversations about building something together? Or was I just a resource you were exploiting? It's not like that. Then what is it like? I stood up, and my hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists. Explain to me how you've been planning to steal my work for months, maybe years, while pretending to be my best friend. Explain how that's not exactly what it looks like. I'm not stealing anything. His voice rose, defensive. Oracle wouldn't exist without me. You'd still be some invisible engineer if I hadn't. He stopped himself, but it was too late. If you hadn't what? I said softly. If you hadn't found me and realized you could use my brain while taking credit for my work? Is that what you were going to say? That's not fair. Not fair? I was yelling now. You told investors you spent 3 years building Oracle. 3 years. I spent 4 years building it. You showed up 2 years ago and started helping with business strategy. You lied to them. You're lying to everyone. I positioned it. I made it matter. Your code would be rotting in some company archive if I hadn't seen its potential and built a whole strategy around it. So that gives you the right to erase me, to cut me out, to make yourself the sole founder of something I created. You're not a founder, Nathan. You're an engineer, a brilliant one, yes, but that doesn't make you qualified to run a company. I was trying to set up a structure where we could both succeed instead of having you run this thing into the ground because you don't understand how business actually works. There it was. The truth he'd been hiding under years of friendship. He didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a talented tool. "Get out," Theo said. His voice was cold now, all pretense of friendship gone. "Get out of my apartment." "Gladly." I headed for the door, but stopped with my hand on the knob. "I'm going to HR first thing tomorrow. I'm going to tell them everything. How you've been lying to investors, how you're trying to steal intellectual property, how you've been manipulating me for years." "Good luck with that," he smiled. And it was a smile I'd never seen before. Cruel, confident. Sarah's already been briefed on the Nathan problem, remember? She knows you're emotionally unstable about this project. She knows you've been struggling with the transition to a more advisory role, and she knows I've been trying to help you accept that you're just not leadership material. That's bullshit. Is it? Or is it the story that makes sense? The brilliant but difficult engineer who can't handle not being in control. The technical genius who doesn't understand business and lashes out when his manager tries to help him grow? He stepped closer. "I've been laying the groundwork for months, Nathan. Everyone who matters already believes my version of events. You're the paranoid engineer with an overblown sense of ownership. I'm the patient manager trying to guide you toward a more appropriate role. I have the code, I have the documentation, I can prove I built Oracle, and I have every email showing how I guided you through that process, how I supervised your work, how I directed the project from conception to execution. Every bit of documentation runs through my approvals. Every decision was made under my leadership. That's what the record shows, Nathan. That's what everyone will believe." I stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. Not the friend I'd created in my imagination, but the person who'd actually been there all along, a predator who'd seen prey and spent 4 years preparing to consume it. "I trusted you," I whispered. "I know," Theo said. "That's why this worked." I left his apartment at 3:47 a.m. and drove home through empty Seattle streets, tears blurring my vision so badly, I'm amazed I didn't crash. When I got home, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to figure out what to do. But I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except feel the reality of what had happened crushing me. My best friend had been systematically destroying me for months, maybe years, and I'd been so blind, so trusting, so fucking stupid that I'd helped him do it. Oh, I didn't sleep that night, or the next night, or the night after that. I went to HR the following morning, just like I'd threatened. I brought documentation, early drafts of Oracle's architecture with my name on them, commit logs showing years of my code, design documents I'd created before Theo even knew the project existed. The meeting lasted 45 minutes. The HR director, a woman named Patricia, who I'd met maybe twice in 5 years, listened with patient, practiced sympathy. I understand this is very difficult, she said when I finished. It sounds like there's been a breakdown in communication between you and Theo about roles and expectations. It's not a breakdown in communication. He's been lying to investors and executives, trying to steal my work. Nathan. Her voice was gentle in that way that's actually condescending. I can see you're very upset, and that's completely understandable. Creative differences between technical staff and management can be really challenging, but from what I'm seeing in our records, Theo has been supervising Oracle's development since early 2018. He's listed as the project lead in all official documentation. Because he changed the documentation. If you look at the original project proposals, I have looked at them, and I see a lot of collaborative work between you and Theo, with Theo in the leadership position. Now, that doesn't diminish your technical contributions at all. You've done excellent work, but there's a difference between doing excellent work under someone's direction and being the sole creator of a project. I am the sole creator. Theo didn't even join the company until 2015. I'd been working on the underlying algorithms since 2014. Patricia nodded sympathetically. And that early research was valuable, I'm sure. But Oracle as it exists now, the complete platform with business strategy, market positioning, investor relations, and technical execution that was developed collaboratively under Theo's leadership. That's what the record shows. The record is wrong. Or maybe your perception of your role is a bit inflated? She said it kindly, like she was trying to help me see the truth. This happens sometimes with highly talented technical people. You get so invested in the creative work that you lose sight of all the other pieces that go into making something successful. Theo isn't trying to steal anything from you, Nathan. He's trying to help you understand the bigger picture. I realized then what Theo had meant about laying the groundwork. Every conversation, every email, every piece of documentation had been carefully crafted to support his version of reality. And my version, the truth, just sounded like the paranoid ravings of an engineer who couldn't handle authority. So that's it, I said. He just gets away with this? Gets away with what exactly? Managing a project he's been leading for 2 years, positioning a company asset for maximum strategic value. Those are literally his job responsibilities. She leaned forward. Nathan, I'm going to be very direct with you because I think you need to hear this. The way you're talking about this situation, the accusations, the emotional intensity, the sense of persecution, it's concerning. Have you considered that you might be experiencing some burnout? Maybe some professional counseling would help you process these feelings in a healthier way. And there it was, the final play. I wasn't the victim. I was the problem. The unstable engineer who needed therapy because he couldn't handle reality. Thanks for your time, I said quietly, and left before I said something that would make everything worse. The next 3 months were the darkest of my life. Theo and I didn't speak again. We couldn't avoid each other completely at the office, but we developed a careful dance of avoidance, different lunch, schedules, different meeting times, different paths through the building. When we did cross paths, he'd nod politely, professionally, like I was just another colleague, instead of someone who'd known his deepest fears and biggest dreams. Meanwhile, Oracle moved forward without me. Technically, I was still the lead architect, still owned the technical development. But Theo had systematically taken over every other aspect. He was in meetings I wasn't invited to, making decisions I only heard about second-hand, positioning the project for a spin-off that would leave me as either a junior employee or pushed out entirely. And everyone treated this as normal, as appropriate, as Theo being a good manager, and me being a difficult employee who needed to adjust my expectations. Sarah Chen actually pulled me aside one day in February 2020 to check in. "I know the Oracle transition has been hard for you," she said. "Change is always difficult, especially when you're used to having a lot of control, but I want you to know that your technical contributions are still very valued. Theo speaks highly of your work all the time." I almost laughed, almost told her I'd read her emails, seen exactly what she and Theo really thought of me. But what was the point? She was part of the system that was destroying me. "Thanks," I said instead. "I appreciate that. Just remember, Nathan, being a brilliant engineer and being a business leader are two different skill sets. There's no shame in focusing on what you're best at and letting others handle the rest. That's what successful people do. They know their lanes." My lane, as defined by the man who'd stolen my work. I started drinking more. Not dramatically, I wasn't showing up drunk to work or anything. But a glass of whiskey every night became 2, then 3. Then I stopped counting. I stopped eating properly, dropped 15 pounds without trying. I stopped going to the gym, stopped hiking, stopped doing anything that might accidentally bring me joy. My friends, the few I had outside of Theo, noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't explain it. How do you tell someone that your entire life was a lie? That the person you loved most in the world had been systematically destroying you for years while you smiled and thanked him for it? My mum called every Sunday, same as always, and I performed normalcy for her. "Yeah, work's good. Yeah, Theo and I are still close. Yeah, I'm taking care of myself." All lies, but easier than the truth. The worst part wasn't even the professional destruction. It was the emotional devastation of realizing that every good memory I had from the past 4 years was contaminated. Every laugh, every deep conversation, every moment of connection, it was all manipulation. Theo hadn't loved me like a brother. He'd studied me like a mark. And I'd been so desperate for connection, so hungry for someone to see me, that I'd given him everything he needed to destroy me. In March 2020, 2 things happened that changed everything. First, the pandemic hit. The world shut down, and suddenly everyone was working from home, isolated, trapped with their thoughts. For most people, it was difficult. For me, it was almost a relief. I didn't have to pretend anymore, didn't have to perform normalcy in an office where everyone looked at me like I was the problem. I could just disappear into my apartment and my work and my slowly growing rage. Second, I found the LinkedIn message. I'd stopped checking my LinkedIn months ago. What was the point? But one night in late March, drunk and scrolling through my phone at 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, I opened it and found a message from 6 weeks earlier. It was from someone named Derek Ashford, a venture capitalist from a firm called Pinnacle Ventures. "Hi Nathan, I hope this message finds you well. I've been researching Oracle Analytics," very impressive work by the way, "and came across your name in some early documentation. Theo Brennan has been pitching it to us as his platform, but I always like to dig deeper and understand who's really building what. I noticed that you're listed as the original architect on several early technical proposals, and your commit history suggests you've been the primary developer since 2016. Yet in our conversations with Theo, your name barely comes up, except as a senior engineer on the team. This disconnect is interesting and a bit concerning from an investment perspective. I've seen situations like this before, where the person pitching isn't the person who actually built the thing, and that usually creates problems down the road. Would you be open to a call? I'd love to hear your perspective on Oracle's development and your role in the project. Completely confidential, of course. Best, Derek. I read it 5 times, my heart pounding. Someone had noticed. Someone had done the research and found the discrepancies in Theo's story. Someone might actually believe me. I wrote back immediately, setting up a call for the next day. Derek Ashford turned out to be everything Theo pretended to be: sharp, strategic, but genuinely interested in truth rather than just appearances. We talked for 2 hours on that first call. I walked him through Oracle's entire development history, showed him documentation that proved my role, explained how Theo had gradually taken over the narrative while I'd been too trusting to notice. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" Derek asked. "If this has been going on for months, why wait until now?" I did say something. I went to HR. They didn't believe me. They said I was being emotional and that Theo was just doing his job. I paused. Everyone believes his version because he's been carefully crafting it for years. I sound like a paranoid engineer with an inflated ego. He sounds like a patient manager dealing with a difficult employee. Except, "You're not paranoid," Derek said. "You're right, and I can prove it." He explained that when his firm does due diligence on potential investments, they dig deep. They look at commit histories, review technical documentation, interview everyone involved in a project. And when they'd started that process with Oracle, red flags had appeared everywhere. "Theo's story doesn't match the evidence," Derek said. "He claims he's been developing Oracle for 3 years, but the technical architecture existed before he even joined the company. He presents himself as the sole founder, but all the IP was created by you. He's either delusional about his own contributions, or he's deliberately lying to investors." "He's lying?" "Yeah, I figured." "Question is, what do you want to do about it?" What did I want to do about it? I wanted to burn Theo's entire world to the ground. I wanted him to feel every bit of pain he'd caused me. I wanted him exposed, humiliated, destroyed. But I said, "I want the truth to come out. I want people to know what really happened." "Then let me help you," Derek said. "My firm isn't going to invest in Oracle with Theo at the helm. The fraud alone disqualifies him. But if you were running it with proper equity structure and honest positioning, that's something we'd be very interested in." "You'd invest in me?" "I'd invest in the real creator, yes. But more than that, I can help you document everything. My firm has lawyers, investigators, resources you don't have. We can build an airtight case that proves Theo has been defrauding investors. And then we can make sure everyone who needs to know, the company, the VCs he's been pitching, the professional community, actually knows." It was the first hope I'd felt in months. "Why would you do this?" I asked. "What's in it for you?" "Honestly, I fucking hate people like Theo Brennan. I've been in this business for 20 years and I've seen too many brilliant creators get screwed by smooth-talking operators who steal their work and take all the credit. It's personal for me now. I want to see guys like him lose." We spent the next 2 weeks building the case. Derek's firm hired a forensic IT specialist who analyzed every piece of Oracle's code and documentation, establishing a clear timeline that proved I'd been the sole architect and primary developer for 4 years before Theo entered the picture. They hired a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property fraud and employment law. She reviewed all my HR complaints, all the emails I'd saved, all the documentation I'd tried to show Patricia. "This is clear-cut IP theft," she told me, "and possibly fraud if he's been misrepresenting his role to investors. We have more than enough for a lawsuit, probably multiple lawsuits." But Derek had a better idea. "We don't go legal right away," he said. "That's messy, expensive, and takes years. Instead, we go public with the evidence. We send a detailed report to every VC Theo's been talking to, every executive at your company, every person who matters in this industry. We show them exactly what he did, and then we let the professional consequences destroy him naturally." "That could destroy my career too," I pointed out. "I'll look like a troublemaker." "Or you'll look like a creator protecting his work. Spin matters, Nathan, and we control the spin this time." On April 15th, 2020, Derek's firm sent out what they called the Oracle Report. It was 47 pages of detailed analysis, complete with timeline documentation, code analysis, email evidence, and witness statements from other engineers who'd watched me build Oracle from nothing. The report went to 15 VC firms, 20 tech industry journalists, every executive at Meridian Analytics, and 50 influential people in Seattle's tech community. The subject line was simple: fraud alert, Oracle Analytics, founder misrepresentation. Within 24 hours, it had been forwarded to hundreds more people. Within 48 hours, it was being discussed on industry message boards and Twitter. Within 72 hours, Theo's professional life was on fire. VCS, who'd been interested in Oracle, pulled out immediately. Tech journalists started writing articles about founder fraud and IP theft in the startup world, using Theo as the primary example without always naming him, but making it obvious who they meant. Meridian Analytics launched an internal investigation. Sarah Chen, who'd been Theo's primary protector, suddenly had to distance herself to save her own career. And Theo? Theo tried to fight back. He sent out his own statement, claiming the report was a malicious attack from a disgruntled employee, and that he'd always acknowledged Nathan's technical contributions while providing the leadership and vision that made Oracle successful. But nobody believed him anymore. The evidence was too clear, the timeline was too damning. Within 2 weeks, Meridian Analytics put Theo on administrative leave pending the outcome of their investigation. Within 3 weeks, he'd hired a lawyer. Within 4 weeks, he'd quietly resigned before he could be fired. I should have felt triumphant, victorious, vindicated. Instead, I felt empty. On May 20th, 2020, I received an email from Shio. "Nathan, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you hate me. Maybe you have the right to. I'm not going to try to defend myself. The evidence is what it is, and I'm dealing with the consequences, but I want you to understand something, even if you don't believe it. I didn't set out to steal from you. That first dinner in 2015, that was real. The friendship was real. I genuinely cared about you, admired you, valued you. But somewhere along the way, I got lost. I started believing my own story about how I was the visionary and you were the executor. I convinced myself that I was protecting you from parts of the business you couldn't handle, when really I was just protecting my own ego and ambition. I don't know when the line got crossed between partner and predator. Maybe it happened gradually. Maybe it was always there and I was lying to myself the whole time. What I do know is that I destroyed the best friendship I ever had because I couldn't separate what I wanted from what was right. And I've lost everything that actually mattered trying to steal something that was never mine to take. You won, Nathan. You got your revenge. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my future. I'll probably never work in this industry again. I hope it was worth it. I hope you can sleep at night knowing what you did to me. Theo, I read that email a dozen times, and every time it made me angrier. Even in his apology, he was trying to manipulate me, admitting just enough to seem self-aware while still painting himself as the victim. You destroyed my career, as if I'd done something to him instead of simply revealing what he'd done to himself. I started typing a response 100 times, telling him exactly what he could do with his self-pitying bullshit, explaining that I hadn't destroyed his career, he'd destroyed it by being a fraud, pointing out that every consequence he was facing was the direct result of his own choices. But in the end, I didn't send anything, because the truth was, he was right about one thing. It wasn't worth it. Yes, I'd won. Yes, Theo was professionally destroyed. Yes, everyone now knew the truth about Oracle, but I didn't feel vindicated. I felt poisoned. The Oracle report had done its job perfectly. Theo was toxic in the industry now, unemployable, his reputation in ruins. Several VCs had even blacklisted him, making sure he'd never get funding for anything again. Derek's firm had invested in Oracle, now properly structured with me as founder and majority equity holder. I'd left Meridian Analytics and started my own company. I had funding, support, and recognition. I'd gotten everything I wanted, except I couldn't enjoy any of it. Because every single day I woke up and remembered that my best friend had been a lie. Every success felt hollow because the person I wanted to share it with was the person who'd tried to destroy me. Every moment of triumph was contaminated by the taste of betrayal. I'd spent 4 years building a friendship that never existed. 4 years loving someone who was using me. 4 years being so fucking blind and stupid and desperate for connection that I'd handed my enemy every tool he needed to gut me. And even though I'd gotten revenge, even though I'd won, I couldn't get those years back. Couldn't make them mean something different. Couldn't make the memories clean. Theo had stolen my work, but worse than that, he'd stolen my ability to trust, my ability to open up, my ability to believe that anyone who showed me kindness actually meant it. He'd turned me into someone paranoid and guarded and alone, and no amount of professional success was going to fix that. Over the next 2 years, I built Oracle into exactly what I'd always dreamed it could be. We raised a Series A, then a Series B. We grew to 40 employees. We landed major clients. We got written up in TechCrunch and Forbes. I was professionally successful in ways I'd never imagined possible, and I was absolutely miserable. I threw myself into work the way monks throw themselves into prayer, desperately, obsessively, like if I could just achieve enough, prove enough, succeed enough, it would fill the crater where my ability to trust used to be. It didn't work. I went to therapy at Derek's suggestion, spent a year talking through the betrayal, the manipulation, the loss. My therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Reeves, helped me understand that what Theo had done wasn't just professional theft. It was emotional abuse, psychological manipulation, covert narcissistic exploitation. You weren't stupid, she told me. You were targeted by someone who studied you, learned your vulnerabilities, and exploited them systematically. That's not a failure on your part, that's predation. It helped a little, But it didn't change the fact that I couldn't get close to people anymore. I tried dating. I went on maybe 20 first dates over 2 years and never a second date, because every time someone showed interest, every time someone seemed to understand me, every time I felt that spark of connection, I remembered Theo, remembered how real it had felt, remembered how wrong I'd been. I made friends with people on my team, but kept them at arm's length, professional friendships only. No late-night conversations about dreams and fears. No vulnerability. No risk. I was successful and accomplished and completely alone. And I thought about Theo constantly. Not with the white-hot rage I'd felt that first year, but with this cold, analytical curiosity, wondering where he was, what he was doing, whether he'd rebuilt his life or whether I'd actually destroyed him as thoroughly as he'd destroyed me. I knew I shouldn't care. Knew he didn't deserve my thoughts, but I couldn't stop. Because as much as I hated him, as much as he'd hurt me, he was still the only person who'd ever really known me. Even if it had been a lie, even if he'd been studying me instead of loving me, he'd still seen me in a way nobody else ever had. And losing that, losing him, felt like losing a part of myself. In August 2022, Derek called me with news. "You're not going to believe this," he said, and I could hear the grim amusement in his voice. "Theo Brennan just published a memoir." "What?" "Yeah. It's called The Founder's Dilemma, How I Lost Everything and Found Myself." He's been shopping it around to publishers for months, and someone actually bought it. It comes out in October. I felt something dark uncoil in my chest. Is it about Oracle? It's about everything, his whole career, his rise and fall, and
Yes, a lot about Oracle and you. He's positioning it as a cautionary tale about ambition and the cost of success. Apparently, he's the tragic hero who got lost in his own narrative and paid the price. Tragic hero? He's a fucking fraud. Oh, I know, and from what my sources tell me, he doesn't exactly admit that in the book. He acknowledges mistakes and crossed lines, but mostly paints himself as someone who got caught in a system that values narrative over truth. He's basically trying to rehab his image by turning his downfall into a story about redemption and growth. That's unbelievable. That's narcissism, Derek said. These guys never actually take accountability. They just find new ways to center themselves in the story. The book came out in October 2022, and despite myself, I bought it. I read it in one sitting, and with each page, I felt my carefully constructed numbness crack open, because Theo had written about our friendship, about those golden years, those
late-night conversations, those Sunday hikes. And he'd written about them beautifully, poignantly, with what seemed like genuine emotion. He described me as the most brilliant person I'd ever met, and the brother I'd never had but always wanted. He wrote about how our collaboration had been the most creative and fulfilling period of my life. And then he wrote about how he'd lost himself in the competition and ambition that defined startup culture, how he'd made terrible choices that hurt someone I loved, how he'd destroyed the most important friendship of my life in pursuit of success I didn't even really want. He wrote about the Oracle report like it was a reckoning he'd deserved, a wake-up call that had forced him to confront his own darkness. He wrote about his fall from grace as a journey towards self-awareness and authenticity. He wrote about me, never by name, always as my friend or my partner, with what read like genuine grief and regret. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if it was real or if it was just another manipulation. Had Theo actually learned something? Had he actually changed? Or was this just another version of the same con, playing the repentant fallen angel to rehabilitate his image and set up his next move? I would never know, could never know, because that was the nature of what he'd done to me. He'd destroyed my ability to trust my own judgment about people's sincerity. Part 6. The Final Move. I didn't contact Theo after reading his book, didn't respond to what felt like a public apology wrapped in a memoir, didn't engage with any of it. Instead, I made a different choice. In November 2022, I sold Oracle. A consortium of investors offered me $450 million for the company. It was more money than I'd ever imagined having, more money than I knew what to do with. I said yes. And then I used $10 million of it to create something new. I called it the Technical Founder Protection Fund. It's a non-profit that provides free legal support, documentation services, and advocacy for engineers and technical creators who are being exploited by business partners or managers. We help people protect their IP, document their contributions, and fight back against exactly the kind of manipulation Theo used on me. In the first year, we helped 47 people. In the second year, 93. By 2024, we'd expanded to 12 cities and helped over 300 technical founders protect their work from predatory business partners. Every person we helped was a small revenge against what Theo had done. Not revenge against him specifically, but against the system that had enabled him. The culture that values smooth talkers over actual creators. The environment where Theos can thrive. I named the fund after my father, who died before he could see me succeed. Before he could know that his weird, awkward son who loved computers and patterns would build something that mattered. The fund became my purpose, my redemption, the way I turned my pain into something useful. I saw Theo one more time, purely by accident. It was March 2025 at a tech conference in San Francisco. I was there giving a keynote about the fund, talking about founder exploitation and how to prevent it. And halfway through my speech, I saw him. He was in the back of the auditorium, standing against the wall, just watching. He looked different. Older, tired, the easy charisma was gone, replaced by something more worn and genuine. Our eyes met for just a second, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Not manipulation, not calculation, not strategy, just profound, bone-deep sadness. I finished my speech, answered questions, did the networking thing afterward with people who wanted to talk about the fund, and when I finally left the auditorium 2 hours later, Theo was still there, waiting in the lobby. "Nathan," he said when he saw me, "just my name, nothing else."
Theo. We stood there for a long moment. Two people who used to know everything about each other, now complete strangers. "I listened to your speech," he said finally. "The fund it's incredible, really. You're helping people." "Yeah, that's the idea." "I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I know I said it in emails and implied it in the book, but I need to say it to your face. What I did to you was unforgivable. And not just the Oracle stuff, the whole thing, the friendship, the manipulation, all of it. I used you. I hurt you. And I've spent the last 5 years trying to understand how I became someone capable of that." I looked at him carefully, trying to read whether this was real or another performance. "And did you figure it out?" I asked. "Yeah, I was terrified of being invisible. My whole life, I was the middle kid, the one nobody noticed. And then I got good at making myself noticed, being charming, being strategic, being the guy everyone wanted to know. But it was all performance, all armor. And when I met you, when I saw how brilliant you were, I think part of me wanted to absorb that brilliance, own it, make it part of my story so I'd finally matter. You mattered before you met me, Theo. You were already successful. But I didn't feel like I was. I felt like a fraud playing a role. And then I found a real genius. And I thought if I could just attach myself to you, if I could just make your success part of my story, then maybe I'd actually be the person I was pretending to be. He shook his head. I know that doesn't excuse anything. I know sorry doesn't fix what I broke. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did, what I cost you. You cost me the ability to trust anyone, I said quietly. You cost me 4 years of my life that I can't remember without feeling sick. You cost me my best friend, even though that best friend never actually existed. I know. So what do you want, Theo? Forgiveness? Closure? What? Nothing. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. And that what you built, Oracle, the fund, all of it, is remarkable. You did it without me, better than you would have done with me. And I'm genuinely happy for you, even though I have no right to be. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, he said without looking back, those first 2 years, before I lost myself, that friendship was real, at least for me. I know you won't believe that, and I understand why, but it's true. You were the best friend I ever had. And I destroyed that because I couldn't stop trying to be more than I was. He walked away before I could respond. And I stood there in that hotel lobby, watching him disappear into the crowd, feeling something I couldn't quite name. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not closure, but maybe release. It's February 2026 now. I'm 37 years old, and I run a non-profit that's helped over 1,000 people protect their work from exploitation. I still think about Theo sometimes, less often now, but still regularly, wondering if he actually changed or if that final conversation was just another performance, wondering if the friendship was ever real or if I just wanted it to be so badly that I invented it. I'll never know for sure. And I've made my peace with that uncertainty. Last month, I hired a new director of operations for the fund. Her name is Alicia, and she's brilliant and funny and kind in ways that feel genuine. We've been working together for 3 months, and she's already made the fund more efficient and effective than I could have alone. We had dinner last week after a particularly difficult case. A young engineer whose business partner had literally copied his code and launched a competing company. We'd won the lawsuit, saved the engineer's company, and Alicia had been instrumental in the victory. We should
Celebrate, she said after we got the news. Buy you dinner? We went to a small Italian place in Soma, and we talked for hours about everything. The case, the fund, our lives, our dreams. And at some point during that conversation, I realized I was happy, actually happy, not performing happiness or working myself into numbness, just enjoying being with another human being who seemed to genuinely see me. You okay? Alicia asked, noticing my expression. Yeah, I said, just realizing something. What? That maybe I'm ready to trust people again. She smiled. That's good. Trust is important. Even if people sometimes betray that trust. Especially then, she said, because the alternative is living alone in a fortress you built out of fear, and that's not living, that's just surviving. She was right. Theo had taught me that people could be predators, that friendship could be manipulation, that love could be exploitation. But he didn't get to teach me that. Those things were all that existed. There were also people like Derek, who'd helped me fight back without asking for anything in return. People like Dr. Reeves, who'd helped me heal. People like the 1,000 engineers I'd helped through the fund, who'd trusted me with their stories and their pain. And maybe people like Alicia, who might become a friend, or might become more, or might become nothing, but who deserved the chance to be trusted. Last week I got a LinkedIn notification. Theo had posted for the first time in 3 years. The post was simple. 5 years ago, I lost everything I thought mattered. I lost my career, my reputation, my future in the industry I'd built my identity around. I lost these things because I'd become someone I didn't recognize, someone who valued success over integrity, narrative over truth, ambition over human connection. The last 5 years have been the hardest of my life, but they've also been the most important. I've learned what
actually matters, not what you build or what title you hold or what story people tell about you, but how you treat people. Whether you're honest, whether you're kind, whether you're capable of seeing other people as fully human instead of as tools for your own advancement. I'm writing this because I know someone out there is where I was, losing themselves in the pursuit of something that doesn't actually matter, hurting people they care about because they can't stop competing, becoming a person they'll eventually hate. Stop. Whatever you're doing that's costing you your soul, stop. The price is too high, the victory is too empty, the regret is too permanent. I can't undo what I did, can't give back what I took, can't repair what I broke. But I can tell you that becoming a person you're ashamed of is the loneliest feeling in the world. And no amount of success is worth that cost. Be better than I was. Choose connection over achievement. Choose integrity over advancement. Choose people over prizes, that's all. I read it 3 times, and I still couldn't tell if it was genuine growth or sophisticated manipulation. But I realized something important. It didn't matter whether Theo had actually changed or was just crafting a new narrative. Didn't affect my life anymore. He wasn't my friend, wasn't my enemy, wasn't my responsibility. He was just someone I used to know, someone who'd hurt me badly and taught me harsh lessons about trust and betrayal. But he didn't get to define me anymore. I didn't respond to his post, didn't like it or share it or comment. I just closed LinkedIn and went back to work because I had a fund to run, people to help, and a life to build that had nothing to do with Theo Brennan. Sometimes people ask me if the revenge was worth it. If destroying Theo's career gave me the satisfaction I was looking for. The honest answer is complicated. Did Theo deserve what happened to him? Absolutely. He'd committed fraud,
stolen intellectual property, manipulated me for years. The consequences he faced were direct results of his own choices. Did destroying him fix what he'd broken in me? No, not even close. Revenge doesn't heal trauma. It doesn't restore trust. It doesn't give you back the years you lost or make the memories clean. What it does do is establish justice. It says, this thing that happened to me was wrong, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. It prevents the same person from doing the same thing to someone else. But the real healing, that came from everything I built after the revenge, the fund, the people I helped, the community I created, the slow, painful work of learning to trust again. The revenge was necessary, but it was only the beginning of the story, not the end. I don't know where Theo is now or what he's doing. I don't check up on him or follow his social media or track his career. I hope he actually did change. I hope he found whatever peace he was looking
For I hope he became someone better than the person who destroyed me, but mostly I just hope he left other people alone. Because that's what predators do, isn't it? They find someone vulnerable, someone hungry for connection, someone brilliant but naive. They study that person, learn their weaknesses, figure out exactly what they need to hear, and then they exploit them systematically while convincing them it's friendship. I was that vulnerable person once, that hungry, naive, brilliant fool who gave everything to someone who saw me as a resource instead of a human being. I'm not that person anymore. I'm someone who knows that trust is precious, that friendship is rare, that the people who actually see you and value you are worth protecting. I'm someone who helps other people avoid what happened to me. I'm someone who built something meaningful out of the worst betrayal of my life. And maybe that's the real victory. Not that I destroyed Theo, but that he didn't destroy me. He tried. God knows he tried. But I survived. I rebuilt. I found purpose. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't crushing your enemy. It's becoming someone so much better than they ever were that their betrayal becomes nothing but a footnote in your much larger story. Last night I had dinner with Alicia again. We're working on a particularly complex case. A data scientist whose former employer is claiming ownership of an algorithm she developed in her free time, using her own resources before she even started working there. This is going to be tough, Alicia said over wine. They have an army of lawyers and she's just one person. So were we once, I said. One person against an entire system that was designed to fuck us over. And you won? Eventually, after a lot of pain and work and help from people who believed in me. She looked at me carefully. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you regret how you handled things with Theo? The public exposure, the professional destruction, all of it? I thought about that for a long time. No, I said finally. I don't regret exposing the truth or fighting back. He was defrauding investors and stealing my work. Someone had to stop him. But I wish I'd understood earlier that revenge wouldn't give me what I actually needed. I thought if I destroyed him, I'd feel whole again, feel vindicated, feel like I'd won something that mattered. And you didn't? I felt empty, because what I'd really lost wasn't my work or my reputation or even my career. It was my ability to trust, my belief that people could be genuine, my faith that connection was possible without exploitation. And now? Now I'm learning that revenge and healing are different things. You can have one without the other. And the healing takes so much longer but matters so much more. Alicia nodded slowly. That's really wise. That's really expensive therapy, I corrected, and we both laughed.
but it was true. The revenge had cost me maybe 6 months of focused effort and some money for lawyers and investigators. The healing had cost me 5 years of therapy, 1,000 uncomfortable conversations with myself, and the daily choice to not let Theo's betrayal define the rest of my life. One was satisfying, the other was transformative. I needed both, but only one actually mattered in the end. I still remember the night I discovered Theo's betrayal. Sitting in his dark apartment reading those emails, feeling my entire world crack open and reveal something rotten underneath. I still remember the rage, the grief, the devastating realization that 4 years of my life had been a lie. I still remember deciding to fight back, to expose him, to make him pay for what he'd done. And I still remember the hollow feeling when I'd won, when Theo was destroyed, when I'd gotten everything I thought I wanted and realized it wasn't enough. But I also remember Derek reaching out to help. Dr. Reeves teaching me that I wasn't stupid, just targeted. The first engineer I helped through the fund, crying with relief because someone finally believed her. I remember the moment I realized I could build something meaningful out of my pain. Could take the lessons Theo taught me about predators and manipulation and systematic exploitation and use them to protect other people. I remember the first time I laughed again without it feeling performative. The first time I shared something personal without immediately regretting it. The first time I let someone get close without waiting for them to hurt me. Those memories matter more now than the betrayal. Not because the betrayal wasn't important, not because it didn't fundamentally change me, but because I refused to let it be the only thing that mattered. If I could go back and talk to the Nathan who existed before Theo, the 26-year-old kid working 90 hours a week in a studio apartment, desperate to be seen, I'd tell him a few things. I'd tell him that he's about to meet someone who will seem like the answer to everything he's been looking for, someone charismatic and brilliant and genuinely interested in him, someone who will make him feel valued and seen and understood in ways he's never felt before. I'd tell him that this person is going to hurt him worse than he's ever been hurt, is going to take 4 years of his life and contaminate every memory, is going to steal his work and try to erase him and force him to choose between his career and his dignity. But I'd also tell him that he's going to survive it. More than survive, he's going to fight back, he's going to win, and more importantly, he's going to build something beautiful and important out of the ashes of that friendship. I tell him that the betrayal is going to feel like death, like the end of everything good, like proof that he's fundamentally unlovable and will always be alone. And none of that will be true. Because on the other side of this nightmare, there's a life waiting for him. A life where he helps people, where he matters, where he's learned to trust again, slowly and carefully, but genuinely. Where he's learned that being betrayed doesn't mean being broken. I'd tell him all of that. But I'd also tell him the hardest truth. He's going to have to go through it anyway. There's no shortcut past this pain. No way to avoid the lessons except to live through them. Some teachers only educate through devastation. Theo was that kind of teacher. And what he taught me about predators and manipulation, about trust and betrayal, about revenge and healing, those lessons cost everything I had, but they made me who I am. It's late now, almost midnight. I'm sitting in my apartment in Seattle, a much nicer apartment than that studio I lived in back in 2015, but somehow less lonely. I'm thinking about Theo, about Oracle, about the last 10 years of my life and everything they cost and everything they taught me. And I'm thinking about tomorrow, about the engineer I'm meeting who's being exploited by her co-founder, about the case we're building to help her fight back, about the possibility of making sure one more person doesn't go through what I went through. I'm thinking about Alicia and whether I'm ready to trust her with something real.
whether I'm capable of that kind of vulnerability again. I'm thinking about the non-profit and how to scale it, how to help more people, how to turn my pain into something that actually matters in the world. I'm thinking about my dad and how I wish he could see what I've built, how I wish I could tell him that his weird kid who loved patterns and computers turned all of that into something that helps people. I'm thinking about the person I was before Theo, and the person I became after, and the person I'm still becoming now. And I realize something important. I don't hate Theo anymore. I don't forgive him either. What he did was unforgivable, but I don't carry him around like a weight anymore. Don't define myself by his betrayal. Don't let what he did to me determine what I'm capable of doing in the world. He tried to destroy me. Instead, he accidentally showed me who I actually was. Someone who could survive betrayal, who could fight back, who could take the worst experience of his life and transform it into purpose. Someone stronger than he ever was, someone better than he could ever be, someone who learned that the opposite of betrayal isn't revenge. It's building a life so full of meaning and connection and purpose that the betrayer becomes irrelevant. I haven't felt real in 3 years, I said at the beginning of this story. That was true when I started writing this. True when I was standing outside that ballroom watching Theo accept my award, feeling like a ghost in my own life. But it's not true anymore. I feel real now, solid, present, human, not because I
Destroyed Theo, not because I got revenge, not because I won, but because I chose to build something better than revenge. I chose to heal instead of staying wounded. I chose to trust again instead of living in a fortress. I chose to believe that one predator didn't define all of humanity. That was my real victory, not the professional destruction of my enemy, but the personal reconstruction of myself. And if you're reading this because someone betrayed you, someone you trusted, someone you loved, someone who you thought would never hurt you, I want you to know something. You will survive this. It will hurt worse than anything you've ever felt. It will make you question everything you thought you knew about people and trust and love. It will change you, but it doesn't have to break you. You can fight back. You can expose the truth. You can make sure they face consequences. And then when the revenge is done, when the dust has settled, when you've won but still feel empty, you can choose to heal. You can choose to build. You can choose to become someone better than the person who hurt you. That's the real revenge, not destruction, but transformation. I'm Nathan Cross. This is my story, and I'm not finished writing it yet.